The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to another award-winning Keefer and Kurre show. He is Kip Keefer on the left side. I'm Tony Kurre on the right side. Would you say that you're a left side and I'm a right side kind of guy? You're more of a you're kind of right down the middle, right? We're we're middle guys.
I lean right. I noticed the other day. This is TMI, too much information. I noticed the other day. It's funny you say that because I made myself laugh. I was performing my duty of standing at the receptacle, relieving myself from a particularly bothersome urge to go, and I realized I was a little off center, and I said, "Gosh, I'm leaning left. That's not good." I tend to lean a little right, and the last time I was in the Jock studio, the radio station. The chair is right in the middle of the desk, but the microphone comes in from the left, so you have to actually lean in. Yep. And I said, "So what's going on here? This is supposed to be a conservative radio station. You got me leaning left." I'm always conscious of that. But if I'm on the left here, that's fine. I'll be left of Tony Kurre. I can do that.
There you go. So today, I love doing the show with you because sometimes we actually prep. I always have a sign right in front of me that says OPE. OPE. I mentioned this: on time, prepared, engaged. If you're on time, prepared, and engaged, you cannot fail in anything in life.
Yeah.
You're on time. You got plenty of time to change things up. Be prepared and be engaged in whatever you're doing, and you're going to hit our home run. If you're 2 out of 3, you may be able to pull it off. 1 out of 3, forget it.
Yeah, well, Meatloaf tells you 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
There's no doubt. And I consider us the kings of OPE for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But occasionally, and I find myself doing this because you are, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass here. I've worked with a lot of different people on radio, and you're one of the few people that I feel like I can just talk to you about anything, and you'll make it interesting. We do that on our television show. I mean, we were talking about, Arby's not having meat last week on ABC.
That was great.
Kai Gregory brought that little nugget in for us, pun intended. But I mean, we've talked about dating. We've talked it's just some really interesting things. And so whilst people are watching us and listening to us, you're actually, this is like a great reality television show. You're actually seeing 2 men who are in their 50s, who've known of each other and know about each other for a long period of time, have a lot of mutual respect for each other, but we're getting to know each other from a friendship standpoint, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And we haven't had any major tiffs. We haven't had any major arguments. We tease each other and stuff. And so I like to find things and throw things out to you. We talked about LGBTQ stuff. We've talked about abortion. I mean, we've gone out as far as we possibly can. And
we're not afraid.
No, we're not. And it helps, to own your own radio station because I don't give a damn. If people are talking about it, people aren't talking about it, we're doing something wrong, right? So I was on one of my favorite sites, and I was pulling up some clickbait, and I saw this great article. It is, and I thought this would be great for us because I know we like to reminisce, and I know based off our listening audience, and I know we have a lot of YouTubers, but we have a lot of Facebookers and stuff. 20 old magazine covers that were so outrageous they shouldn't have existed. Now, I'm thinking to myself, wow. First of all,
interesting. What
could possibly be so outrageous in our past?
Yeah,
that it shouldn't exist now. And while we're doing this, and I'm going through some of these, maybe I'll jog your memory. Maybe you can start thinking about some things that you actually saw that were really surprising you. Right off the bat, when I heard this, I remember the photo of the abortion clinic bombing we had here in Birmingham.
Yeah.
It was on the front page of the newspaper. This was not a magazine, but it was the front page of the newspaper. Do you remember that picture?
I don't remember it specifically. I wasn't here when that. No, yes, I was.
Yeah.
I was in Birmingham by the time that was Eric Rudolph was responsible for that. The same guy, ultimately that set off the bomb at the Atlanta Olympics in 1996.
And I was actually within a block of both of those explosions.
No kidding.
I was right across the street covering the 1996 Olympics when that bomb went off there at Olympic Park. And I was right around the corner at a store when the abortion clinic bombing went off.
Damn.
And because of that, I actually got called in by the FBI and got interviewed several times because I was so close to both. They had nothing to do with it. But the photo that they played in the Birmingham News, and this had to be one of those things where they had to probably talk to some people, say, is this going to be okay to do? But it was a foot. There was a foot that had been blown off.
Oh my
I guess
gosh.
the security person that was laying on
And
top
that was
of,
on the front page of the paper?
yeah, and it was laying in the bushes.
Wow, I can't believe I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and I just remember they just got railroaded. They got plowed. They just to talk about being so desensitive, and obviously, you know, how conservative we are here, and just how insensitive and unruly that was to actually show an individual dismembered on the front page of the newspaper. And so,
That's
you know,
incredible.
and again, that's one of those things where, you know, someone's got to go to the editor, right, and go, listen, we're about ready to post this. What do you think? I mean, I don't think someone just, you know, went behind the corner and put this out there because they knew it was going to, and it made national news.
Oh, sure.
And it made national news obviously because there was a bombing here. And by the way, I've been to North Carolina a couple of times, and I cannot remember the exact name of the wooded area, but I actually saw his camp that he actually stayed in for, I guess, over a year. And it was
Yeah.
ironic enough because he finally let his guard down. I guess he was rummaging through some type of trash can or something, looking for a can of beans or
Well,
something.
actually, I think he had broken into somehow to
Yeah.
like a convenience store.
Yep.
And the manager was monitoring that because he had noticed a couple times that somebody was stealing from him in the middle of the night, and
Yep.
it just got down to him needing a cold drink or a sack of chips, and that's what did him in.
I watch Alone once in a while on the History Channel. I was
Yeah.
really hooked on it the first couple of years. I watched it. Now I don't watch it anymore. But I'm a people person. I always thinking I'm tough as nails, and I could probably survive in the wild for a few months. But just not being around another human being, I couldn't do it. I could deal with the weather. I could deal with finding food. I could deal with all this making a fire, but I could not handle not being around another individual for that long. Solitary confinement would be, I'd kill myself. I don't
Yeah.
think I could do it. It's the reason for me never want to go to prison. You don't need to scare me straight because that would be horrible. Just to sit in an 8x10 cell, a holding
Ugh.
cell one night was enough for me. But I actually
That's
saw,
how I feel on Saturday nights in my living room.
but I saw his encampment where he actually hunkered down
How
for
about
over
that?
a year. And it was unlike anything that you and I would have. There was a lean-to where he actually had, you know, sticks up against. You could tell that obviously people have been through that area and just rummaged through it. There was no marking saying this is where Eric Rudolph stayed or whatever. It was just a very small. It was about the size of a large bedroom where you could see the embankment. But it was amazing to think that's where history is made. So that was one thing that I remember seeing on the front page of outside. Sports Illustrated, you know, the Cheryl Tiegs thing, the see-through bikini, what was front. I'm trying to think of some other magazines. So I was really interested in hearing this list. Do you want to hear some of these? And
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
1966, Time magazine on a black background had the sentence in question, "Is God dead?" Back in 1966. Do you remember that?
I do. I was just a small child, but that became a culturally significant, and I don't remember the details of the story, but it was I know it was talking about the decline of religion in this country, and I mean that was 50 years ago. Look at the decline now; it's even much more profound. So, but yeah, I'd be interested to hear your take on it, but. That was one that shocked the country.
You know, and I'm thinking to myself again, this is called 20 old magazine covers that were so outrageous they shouldn't have existed. It probably shouldn't have existed then. What do you think it would be like if Time magazine came out with that issue today? How would we react to it?
I think that the question is more pertinent today because if you look at declining church attendance, it is appalling. It's amazing.
It's below for 50%. For the first time in our history, we are not religiously preferred.
And I think regular church attendees is down to like 30%.
Yeah.
You know, it's really startling that a country based on Judeo-Christian principles has had this massive decline, but it goes right along with a lot of the things that I talk about on Need to Know and other programs that that this is part of just changing the identity of what this country is. And again, so much of our Constitution, so much of our heritage, and different ways that we can practice regular life in this country is based on these religious principles. The whole term American exceptionalism, Tony, is misinterpreted as some kind of braggadocious or boastful, Americans exceptional, but that's not what the roots of that was from a biblical passage. Where a preacher by the name of John Winthrop, who the university is named after him in the Carolinas now, on a ship coming to America, was telling the people on the ship that American exceptionalism, right out of the Bible, America needs to be the shining city on the hill that every eye is upon. And it was really a challenge, a setting of the bar, that if you're going to embark on this mission to be an American and start this whole new way of life that has never been contemplated before, America has to be, by its design, exceptional in every way. And I think we've proven time and time again we have been. But again, so much of the origins and the principles of this country are based on biblical references and Judeo-Christian principles. And it's amazing that we've had this kind of decline in terms of faith and spirituality.
To put it in perspective, I heard this last week and it just really stuck with me. If you take every college football fan who went to a football game last year, okay, from the start of the season to the end of the season through the CFP, take every fan that was in every stadium or every arena and put them in a group, there are more people that go to church every Sunday than how many people would be in that room. So, I mean, for people to sit there and say that church is dead, religion is dead, this, that, and the other, if you think about not just one Saturday, not just one Thursday night, but if you take every football fan that went and saw any game last year, period, the entire year, and put them in a group, there are more people than that go to church every Sunday to pray. So, I mean, just to kind of give you an idea, because we are doom and gloom with the end of the world kind of situation. But I heard that and I thought, well, and I heard that from a televangelist of all people. He's like, don't tell me religion's dead. Don't tell me God is dead.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that still get up early on Sunday mornings and go and do their thing. 1993, Kurt Cobain was in a dress on Rolling Stone magazine. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
That was one of those things where Kurt was just on top of the world. We obviously know what happened to him, but his masculinity was called out big time, particularly since he played a type of music called grunge that was really
Seattle
type of music, Seattle grunge music. But man, to see Kurt Cobain in a dress, man, just absolutely. And of course, Rolling Stone's always been a little bit outrageous, but man, it freaked people out.
Yeah. Later, I know that the big running back from Texas, Earl Campbell, posed in a dress because he was marrying the Houston Oilers or something. I don't remember who the groom was, but yeah, that kind of touched that off. And now, I mean, nobody would think anything of somebody in a dress. We could see the 1976 Olympic decathlon champion Bruce, aka Caitlyn Jenner. I mean, the world has evolved quite a bit. That would probably not be very shocking today to see any man in a dress. I mean, after all, we're seeing a man in a woman's bathing suit dominating NCAA swimming events. So, I mean, I don't think that would be too much of a shock value now, but back then, pretty shocking stuff.
That's hard to believe. That was 31 years ago. I mean, it's crazy.
And that's funny you say that. Anytime I think of the 90s, it seems like a couple weeks ago. It doesn't seem like it's been 30 years since it was the 90s. That's crazy.
I do remember this vividly because it was actually the year that I graduated back in 1984 from, of course, Lakota High School, not college. And I actually remember seeing this cover because it was in my brother's underwear drawer. He had the bottom drawer. I had the middle drawer. My oldest brother had the top drawer. And occasionally my brother would put some of his propaganda or some nasty something or other in my drawer by mistake. And it was the cover of Hustler magazine, the 1994 Larry Flynt for President cover of the magazine. Do you remember that?
I do remember it. I don't know if I ever actually was in possession of that or actually physically saw it, but it was certainly big news at the time because Larry Flynt, of course, was regarded as the almost the Antichrist by a lot of people, particularly the religious community, because not only did he have the hardest core porno magazine, but his takes were hardcore.
Oh man.
He was, I mean, he was anybody um, that he was cross with. I mean, he just didn't. He just let it go.
When you say though that now, I mean that was 1984. His stuff is pretty mainstream, isn't it? I mean, the way he thought and the way he spoke then, isn't that mainstream for what we're going through right now?
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of one of the earliest people that was speaking out against all kinds of hypocrisy, and certainly because of the backlash that he continuously got from the religious folks, he really kind of turned it back around that all of you are casting stones and condemning me, but how many of you are really not living this kind of lifestyle?
How many of you subscribing to my magazine?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember he had a legal battle with the metro area of Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I was from at the time.
Yep.
And he still has Larry Flint's shop down on 4th and Plum Street. I actually stopped in there the last time I went and saw a Cincinnati Bengals game with a good friend of mine about 4 or 5 years ago. He's like, does Larry Flint still have his store? And he won some type of, I forget what he was suing the state or the city for. But the Roger Mapplethorpe exhibit. I don't know if you remember Roger Mapplethorpe.
Oh, I do. The controversial artist who did various body parts for his art.
And he was actually married to Patti Smith,
Oh.
the rock and roll artist. I don't know if you're aware of that. They were actually a couple.
I may have been, but I had forgotten that for sure.
And I actually got a chance to interview her out in L.A. We were out there for the Grammys in the mid '90s, and all I wanted to do is talk about Roger Mapplethorpe, and she was very kind and wanting to acknowledge, because I didn't know enough about Patti Smith, but I certainly knew about his exhibit because it was in Cincinnati. And of course, if you pull up Roger Mapplethorpe now, but he was being sued basically, and it was a First Amendment. I don't know what the even amendment was that he said, listen, this is it's art.
Yeah.
And because it's art, I should be able to, and it had everything from bullwhips to nudity to everything else.
And that was always at the heart of the Larry Flint suits. His defense always was, I'm guaranteed by the First Amendment freedom of speech and expression. I did live in Atlanta, Tony, when he was being tried in Georgia, I'm trying to remember what county it was, near Gainesville, Georgia. And during our lunch break, he was actually shot in the street as the defendant in the middle of that case. And never, I don't think he ever walked again. I think he was paralyzed the rest of his life.
Yeah, absolutely. 1966, the year I was born. Did you ever watch or ever read Mad Magazine? My brother loved Mad Magazine.
Oh, yeah.
I got it every single week.
I never was into it like a lot of my friends, but I certainly it certainly was aware of it and looked at it.
What were the name of the crows? The cartoon. Oh gosh,
I don't have it.
Anyway, there are lots of cartoons, and Mad Magazine, by the way, is still available. You can still see it. It launched National Lampoon and all those things.
Yeah,
but there's a picture of Alfred E. Newman. With a Time Magazine cover that says Draft Dodger, and of course we were just going through something called the Vietnam War back in 1966, and that got a lot of notoriety too from Mad Magazine.
Yeah, for all of our younger listeners that may not be aware, up until about the mid 70s, your government could call on you at their beck and whatever reason that they summon you, your number would come up and you would be invited to join the American Armed Forces for a 3 or 4 year a 3 hour, not a 3 hour tour, a 3 year tour. And you did not have the designation. You did not have the option to say, okay, I'll do that if you'll send me to Tahiti. No, that's not how that worked. You could be drafted if you were an able-bodied young man, and it was just young men then. I guess if the draft ever came back, I guess with all this gender equality, I guess everybody would be eligible for military service.
Yep.
But very interesting. The draft itself is another fascinating subject, which went all the way back to Lincoln in the Civil War era, who had the first organized draft to try to get more Union soldiers to suppress the Southern uprising.
Do you like the idea of some governments, much like
Mandatory?
England, mandatory involvement in the armed forces? You must serve at some length, and obviously, there's a lot of countries that still do that. By the way,
absolutely. Remember last year after the Nuggets won the finals of the NBA championship,
yep.
Their superstar player was interviewed. He's from Latvia or whatever, and they said, "Well, what are you gonna do to celebrate this summer?" He says, "I have to report Monday for military service in Latvia."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a guy probably making $50 million a year.
He's a little too tall to serve. He ended up not having to serve, but yeah, he was in.
Yeah. So
that's crazy stuff.
But yeah, to answer your question, I think in certain situations in countries that maybe are not as developed and maybe in some hot spot areas, it makes sense to have a ready military force. I don't think that usually results in a lot of direct combat kind of action. It's more of a training exercise and just commitment to your country. But I don't have a problem with it if that's the tradition or that's the established moray. I don't think it would work in America these days because, I don't know. It just seems like people aren't service oriented in any way now. And I don't know if that it would be popular or even accepted here.
No, you'd have a lot of. You'd have to have an organization just looking for draft dodgers. You'd have people that's not showing up. By the way, if you get a chance to watch the History Channel's The Great War, which just played this past week,
wasn't that awesome?
I watched the second one this morning about 4:00. I got up this morning, and I've been waiting to watch it because you want to watch it. You don't want to have to get up. Fantastic. Unbelievable, fantastic.
And the cool thing about that is, Tony, we had no military force. All that was going on. We didn't really have a military, which is hard for people to believe. But all these people, because we had so many people volunteer to go over there because you had all these guys living in small towns. You were born 2 miles. They'd never wandered 2 miles from where they were born. You had all kinds of people working on farms and ranches. This was like the greatest adventure in the history of the world. A terrible, awful war with nerve gas and trench warfare and misery like you can't even imagine. But this was an opportunity for a whole generation of young men to go and do something that they viewed to be noble and exciting and adventurous. And we had people volunteer in droves, and that exuberance, that war was going to be lost to the Germans, and who knows how the whole world would have been reformed. The American involvement was just incredible, how untrained people that were just shipped over there and basically thrown into the conflict turned the tide. The Americans won that war, and as we've done 3 or 4 times, liberated a bunch of Europeans that were really in desperate need of help.
What the United States alone just produced in military aid. I think it was like 150,000 airplanes, 40,000 battleships. I mean, it was like, I think at one point, I could be totally wrong here. I want to say at one point we were making a battleship every 3 days.
Unbelievable.
At one point, I mean, think about that. About for like 2 consecutive years, we were coming off the lines of a battleship, hitting the water every 2 or 3 days. I mean, it was crazy. And of course, every car place, Ford and everything was all turned into military installments and places to make things, and it's unbelievable.
And 20 years later, we did it again.
Yep.
After World War I, we had so many casualties, and there was such complete indifference for, we don't need to be getting involved in European conflicts ever again. And of course, we got drawn into World War II with the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And the very next day, Adolf Hitler declared war on America, which was an interesting aspect. So once again, with all the apathy of Americans never wanting to get involved in that again, we had next to no military then, and we're still coming out of the throes of a depression. And look what we cranked up for World War II. This almost a repeat of what happened in the late teens in the 1900s. Once again, these are examples I use of the exceptionalism of this country.
Mhm.
Women had never worked. Women had never had jobs in factories and manufacturing. That women were called in because all the men were drafted and sent to both. Were fighting in two theaters, Pacific and European, and women went to work and mass produced all these goods and armaments and vehicles and everything we needed, planes. Just an amazing situation. And if that's not an example of the exceptionalism of this country, I don't know what is.
You throw in the war, obviously the Great War in the late teens, and then you throw in one of our darkest financial days, and of course the stock market crash, and then you throw
October
in
29th,
and
1929.
you throw in World War II from
Oh,
40 to 41 to 45. I mean, that was a tumultuous 25 or 30-year period.
I
For
mean, no
sure.
wonder they call those people the greatest generation.
There's no doubt. 1997 World News Magazine
Okay.
came out with a picture Bat Boy found. Do you remember the picture of Bat Boy? Do you have your phone with you? If you pull up, when you see the picture, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you pull up a picture of Bat Boy, evidently on World Weekly News Magazine, there was a picture of this kid that they found in the woods. He had really long ears, giant eyeballs.
Oh,
And they
gosh.
said he was Bat Boy, and it actually made national news. And people were like, "Are you serious?" And obviously, it was photoshopped. It was not a real thing.
Yeah.
But we took it hook, line, and sinker the whole way. We were like, "Oh my gosh, did you realize there's a Bat Boy?" That's on there. 1998. Actually 1999. And this is important that I say 1999 and 1998 because she was in the process of going from 17 to 18. But Rolling Stone magazine got absolutely just obliterated for objectifying sex because they had a picture of Britney Spears on the cover of their magazine in 1999. She, of course, on the front of her album, she had the plaid skirt on with her legs somewhat apart, but she was sitting on her back end, and obviously looked like a 13, 14, 15-year-old schoolgirl, the way I would remember them back in those days. And Baby, Do It To Me One More Time. And people were like, "Whoa, you're talking about a teenager here. You're talking about a young lady
who's
here.
singing sexually explicit songs."
You're talking about," and so, but we leave it up to the leaders in our foundations and leaders in our platforms and leaders in our lives to make the right calls, because we follow these things, right? We follow these things. If we're told to go get vaccinated, we should get vaccinated. We start questioning things. And so we're questioning one Britney Spears, who, by the way, has posted more nude photos of herself on the internet. I think she's got the world record, Guinness Book of World Records, for the most nude photos she has posted on the internet. She puts it out there almost every single day. And just recently, by the way, got in some big ass fight somewhere outside some hotel.
What a train wreck.
Rolling Stone just got absolutely toasted.
Yeah, I remember
for
that.
Objectifying sexually Britney Spears.
Well, and again, they were portraying that, but if you listen to the lyrics on her albums, they were all innuendo about sexual matters. So I don't care what they were projecting. That's how she was marketing herself.
We could do like 60 more of these. These are fun. I love doing these.
Oh yeah,
I got a couple more I want to do. 2008. So we're talking
that's pretty recent. Yeah, just 16 years ago.
This is going to be amazing to you. And again, these are 20 covers that were so outrageous they shouldn't have existed. It was a picture of LeBron James and a picture of Gisele Bündchen wearing some neat, I won't say outrageous, but it was a fashion mode for Sports Illustrated magazine. And there was a big push that for some reason the racial undertones portrayed by having a large black man with a beautiful white woman on the front page of Sports Illustrated was not proper to have for our youth in this country.
That's in 2008, really?
Yeah, 2008.
Wow.
And that's the best way I can describe it. And I want to go back if you want to comment on this, because I want to read you what it said in this article that had to do with that. LeBron James, Gisele Bündchen's 2008 Vogue cover, sparked outrage. The image's composition was seen as evoking racist stereotypes, prompting discussions about diversity and representation in fashion media. He had what would look like something he'd work out in. And then she obviously had this white thing in her hair with this green, really tight dress on, and he's sitting there, making his face like he just made the winning basket, and she's sitting there with this big smile on her face, and her hair is blowing back. And so, I just read you why people were upset by that. I'm not sure exactly why.
Yeah, that's shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, we
and-
were already in a period where interracial marriage at that point was no big deal.
Yeah.
And also, the whole thing too, Gisele Bundchen, what is she from Brazil? I'm trying to remember where she came from.
I'm not sure where she's from. I could find out.
But it amazes me, Tony, every time, for somebody to criticize that cover by saying she's quote white, unquote, that is so ridiculous, because people that maybe have lighter skin than some other people are not homogenous. They're from all kinds of different places and continents. And, I don't feel any commonality with some pasty white guy from Norway that maybe have a skin tone in the same neighborhood as mine, but I have nothing in common with him. If I'm watching the Olympics, I don't root for the guy from Ukraine who's a white guy, because running against our athletes, if our guy happens to be black, I'm rooting for the American.
Yeah.
I never have understood this whole what people look like, hang up. Who cares what colors people's skin are?
Hey man, she, by the way, is Brazilian. You're correct. She's
Yes.
a Brazilian girl, and I'd be honest.
So that's
with you,
not exactly. I wouldn't consider Brazilian people white.
No.
Would you?
No,
That's crazy.
no, and I didn't even know she was a Brazilian. I had to look it up because her skin color is so olive.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's amazing too. I cannot believe how quietly in the middle of the night that divorce got done. It's amazing. I thought for sure they'd get back together. I can't imagine having two people the same as they were, understanding each other's. I would think they were. I thought they were perfect for each other because they both understood each other. And then for him to go back and play football for 1 year and it end up sounding like that was the reason she lost. That was the reason why she wanted to divorce him, I guess. And then for him to only play 1 more year and then retire for good, and in a sense, giving up his marriage for that 1 more year of football.
Yeah.
To me, was just like a real head scratcher. It was like, am I missing something? Like, did he go play 1 more year of football so she would leave him? Because he really wanted to retire, but he's like, listen, if I go back and play football 1 more time, she'll just leave. I mean, was that the, I mean, I can't imagine, because there had to be the talk. If you go back, I'm done. And if you're going to go ahead and leave your life, and obviously he's got custody of his kids, they got to join custody, it's fine. But if you're going to leave that life with this woman that you seem so perfect for, you're going to do it for more than just 1 year of football, right? No,
I would think so. Have you seen highlights of the roast they did with Tom Brady a couple of weeks ago? It was brutal. They were, those roasts can get really rough. And I don't know who the female comedian was, but she says, well, we're here tonight honoring Tom Brady, who's won 7 rings. Oh, actually he has 8 because Gisele gave hers back.
that was the blonde comedian. She just killed. I can't remember her name. Not Sarah Silverman.
She was awesome.
She absolutely killed it.
But now Brady just was enjoying the hell out of it. But a few days later, he came out and says, I shouldn't have done that because it really hurt my kids to see some of that going on, and for everybody making fun of that because they don't understand that it's just, hard humor. But that whole chapter, like you said, it was such a storybook kind of thing, and they got all these children, and I think a big part of her concern over the years of him continuing to play was, I think her argument was, you're missing your children's lives. Mm-hmm. and he just kind of rejected that because I guess he felt like that, he still had a responsibility to himself and his fans, but that's not the way anybody, I think, saw that coming, because that looked like a storybook deal.
It did. But then again, still at the age of 43, 44, 45, you still have another 50 years left in you to spend as much time as you want with you. Because I realize you can't go back to your 12-year-old recital that you missed. And I realize that you can't bring those things back. But I don't know a
Well,
lot of people that would be
and
willing
just
to
a
work their
couple of
ass
years
off.
before, when the Patriots had actually lost a championship game, remember she got all mad at the press and said, "Well, I don't know how you guys could be barbecuing Tommy for his performance. He did everything possible. He can't throw and catch the ball,"
Yeah.
because I guess they had a bunch of drop stuff. So just a couple of years before, she was like vehemently defending him. So you thought everything was in order there. That you better not talk any garbage about her man, or she's going to bite your head off. And then 3 years later, it's all over.
Yeah. Couple other ones I want to get through. 1970 Interview with a Bunny. That was through Playboy magazine.
Right.
I vaguely remember that, and I think it was a really because Playboy magazine wasn't that old at that point. I don't remember when Playboy magazine actually came out, when Hugh Hefner was in college and actually came up with it. And that's a great story, by the way, if you get a chance to see how he actually started that and what he had to do
Oh, yeah.
There's the Men Who Made America thing on History Channel. They do a whole thing on Hugh Hefner, which is really amazing, and just how absolutely rank and nasty he got towards the end. But that was 1970. 2004, Martha Stewart went to prison. Do you remember that?
Oh, I do.
And you believe that was 20 years ago?
No, that's shocking to me. I mean,
she's more now than she's ever been.
She's more outspoken now than she even was back then. But, that was for allegedly lying in some kind of investment investigation on some stock inside information. Now you can run people over with your car, push people in front of a subway, assault somebody on the street, steal the hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise, and you just get a slap on the wrist and they tell you don't do it again. They put Martha Stewart in prison for getting some inside stock information. That's absurd.
It was a joke. Yeah, and I want to mention this before our last cover, which came out in 2005, which I think is really amazing. Our prior president just was found guilty of 34 different things. And he's not going to spend any time in prison. And of course, we have an appeals process to go through and everything else. So. And I know you're a poll guy. I know you like to watch polls, and there was a percent. I don't know. I don't believe polls. I don't believe them one bit. They've been wrong forever. But there was a poll of how many people would vote for him now that he's convicted felon or going to be a convicted felon. How many people would change their mind? How many independents decide they change ship, this, that, and the other. And you look at 8 different polls, you get 8 different answers. What's amazing to me is how many people back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, if you had a conviction or you were arrested for something like this, outside beating a woman, which still, I mean, we're seeing the P. Diddy situation is blowing up in his face. He'll never be, or R. Kelly, his whole situation with young girls, that will never, ever be okay or something that we can be redemptive about. Our redemptive spirit won't allow us to go back and go, no, this is okay. We're okay with Michael Vick fighting dogs. But when it comes to beating women, that will never be okay.
No.
Yeah, we've got a former president who's running for president who's a 34-time now convicted felon. And we've got a Martha Stewart who 20 years ago went to prison, whether you like it or not. And quite frankly, was bigger now than she ever was. I mean,
she is.
And really kind of, I mean, the fact that she's doing commercials with Snoop Dogg. I mean,
she was in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition last year.
I know, right?
At 83.
Does this mean that we're desensitized by the idea that so many people screw up in life and it is what it is, and that we're more redemptive and that we should not hold that against a person? Or are we more understanding? That
I don't know if it's understanding, Tony. I think more informed. I think outrages like Martha Stewart actually having to do time. I mean, pay a big fine, make her, teach home ec classes to underprivileged, people or whatever. But she didn't need to go to prison for that.
No.
And I think you look at the Trump situation. The amazing thing to me is now, as a convicted felon, he will not be allowed to vote in the election, but he can run for president.
Yes.
I mean, we've got some weird things that are there, but everybody that pays attention knows that this was the ultimate kangaroo banana republic, trial. He was charged with something that no one's ever been charged with before, and it was a marriage between local misdemeanors and felony federal election violations. But the Federal Election Commission and the Department of Justice looked at both those and said, no harm, no foul. There was no violation. So for New York to do this and try it in Manhattan, where it was just preconceived, it was completely rigged. That's why you're not getting the outrage, because I had a discussion a couple weeks ago with a young person at a gathering I was at, and he said, well, he's got to be guilty of some of those charges. And I said, yeah, but they're not real crimes. They're not, they've been concocted because they can't beat him. This, the vegetable in chief we've got in the White House right now, it's just amazing that this is who we're running. So they can't beat him, so they're going to take any measure necessary to take him out.
No, and what they don't, well, they do realize, and they should. I heard someone say yesterday that they would hope that Joe Biden would pardon Donald Trump.
Oh, I heard that.
Because it would actually help Joe Biden.
He would go up in the polls right away.
I'm taking my gloves off because you know what? I want this to be fair. I don't want people voting for you because you are a convicted felon. So I'm going to pardon you. And I mean, I would give anything in the world to see that happen, because I would love to see how people would actually react to that. I think it would be amazing. I don't even know how Donald Trump would react to that. I think it'd be so much fun.
I think he'd be so stunned he'd probably have to withdraw.
I think he would too. Because I don't think he'd be able to do it.
When I first heard that, I said, yeah, sure. And it is, yeah, sure, because Biden's not going to do it. But if he did, his popularity would soar, because that would show that he's above all of this political chicanery that we've become used to.
Absolutely. But it's funny, it's 10 or 15 years ago. If you were running for president and someone pulled up some dirt, because everyone's trying to find dirt, right? We're going back. We're looking at social media posts. You're trying to find dirt, and you found someone that I remember. I remember when George W. Bush, they found out that he snorted cocaine in the 70s. Oh my gosh. And it was like, our president is a cokehead. And I'm like, I mean, it made huge news. And it was like, our president was a snow. And do you remember Bill Clinton? No, I did not inhale. That was news. I didn't inhale. And we're talking about our president is a dope smoker. And it was news. And it was like, I'm not voting for that guy. He's a dope smoker.
Yeah,
he's having to lie and tell people I didn't have sex with that woman and I did not inhale. And we had to try to believe. Now we've got a guy who's been convicted in a court of law of 34, whatever they are. I don't know, the misdemeanors or
they convicted him of every single thing, so it counts as 34 felony
34
convictions.
felonies. We know that he's been unfaithful. There's nothing that he has not. He's done everything but kill somebody. And the guy right now is the front runner. And I don't know what that means. I just think it's hilarious that a few years ago, man, if you found out that a guy was running for president and a week before the election, you found out that he cheated on his wife, done. He's done.
Oh, he's absolutely.
He's done. He's throwing.
Remember,
he's like, it came out.
The Democrat candidate Gary Hart was running away with all of the primaries and everything. He went on a boat called the Monkey Business with this shapely model, and that was it. They got pictures of him. Gary Hart, you're done. You're out.
Was that Jennifer Flowers?
Yes, Jennifer Flowers.
Jennifer Flowers. Yeah. I mean,
good call.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, we got him getting off a bus with Billy Bush
on
talking about
the boat Monkey Business. How good was that?
And he looked really happy having her sit on his lap too. And now we look at that, we're like, hell, that's a weekend in DC.
I mean, good grief.
That's
I mean, this guy might have been president of the United States. He was a senator from Colorado. He's a young, good-looking guy. He was real dynamic. He was real palatable to both sides of the political spectrum because he was kind of flat in the middle. He was the consummate politician. But as what happens a lot of times in business and politics, if you can't keep it where it belongs, you're going to pay the price.
All right, the last magazine cover. We're going long, but I want to do this, and we may do this another time because these are fantastic. Wired, the magazine. The title was "The Singularity is Near 2005." Do you know what that means?
What magazine was it?
Wired.
Singularity. No, you're going to have to explain that one to me.
This cover proclaimed the coming of a technological singularity, a point where artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. It ignited discussions about the future of technology and its potential risks and benefit. That was 19 years ago.
Now that is cutting edge. That was long before anybody was talking about this, thinking about this. It is with us now. And Tony, I can already tell you, because we've got a lot of enterprises going. I'm going to have a session with somebody who's got a lot of knowledge on this in a couple of weeks. That's going to advise me how I can utilize artificial intelligence to do multiple promotional announcements and previews and different things, become de facto a machine that can run my entire marketing and promotional wing, so I don't have to sit here and do it myself. I mean, I'm excited about that.
I don't know if I'm crazy about that. I'd rather see it coming from you, brother. Dude, if you have some artificial intelligence, some robot, and you're reciting poetry on your Facebook page, I'm calling bullshit. I'm gonna know that ain't you, brother.
I don't need no stinking robot to write my thought-provoking poetry.
When you're reciting Hurricane from Bob Dylan, I want to know the lyrics are coming from your lips and not from your robot, man.
Yeah, well, remember you and I did a Keefer and Kurre last year talking about artificial intelligence, and my son was able to put our voices in and have this thing talk like you and I. And at the end, he says, and Kip and Tony, if you have any problem with this, I would keep quiet or something. I know where you guys live. So I mean, who knows? And now you're starting to see there was a coach that was mad at a principal for firing him at a high school in Texas, and he used artificial intelligence to put out a bunch of racist comments in this guy's voice, and the guy was suspended and was being investigated, and they finally tracked down this was an AI operation from a disgruntled former employee. I think we better get used to that, Tony, because you're going to see more and more of it.
That's kind of crazy stuff.
But 2005, they were talking about that. That's incredible.
Yep, just 19 years ago. Hey, great stuff. You never know who's going to join us. We've got Kai Gregory, who was just texting me a few minutes ago. He is, of course, joined the show last week on our wonderful show called The Starting Lineup. We talked about staffing, and we talked about some hoops and all kinds of stuff. This coming week, the Woodhouse Day Spa, we take care of our sponsors. We had Mother's Day a couple weeks ago. Father's Day is coming up on June 16th, so we'll have all kinds of specials you can only hear on The Starting Lineup with Kip Keefer and Tony Kurre on ABC 3340. And, of course, you never know who our guests are. We're working feverishly on all kinds of guests and getting ready, of course, for the kickoff of the college football season 2024. It's going to be unbelievable. All these teams making the playoffs. We're going to have special guests, coaches, and more. It's going to be a fantastic show. It'll butt up right against that early SEC game of the week, that 11 o'clock kick, which, by the way, is Georgia-Clemson this first. I cannot believe that you and I are going to have the pregame to
That's going to be great.
And by the way, people are going to be going, what are you guys going to be talking about? We are going to break down the game. I know if you watch our TV show, we do 10 to 15 minutes. We talk about different things, but we will be breaking down the game. We'll be breaking down tape and our thoughts on those things. And we will have picks again. At one point, I believe we were like 22-3 or something like that.
And we've got the best sports handicapper in America on our show, Case Keefer in Las Vegas. Tony, he cashed a huge ticket last night or night before last. He had the Florida Panthers early in the season to make the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. And they were 15-1. He crushed another one. So this Case is on just a ridiculous roll.
That is crazy. That is great. Yeah, make sure you watch, because this futures, man, and I love futures because it gives you something to play for a long period of time.
Yeah, it's something we need to think about because, just watching his success and again, the counter of that is most people can't sit on a ticket for 8, 9, 10 months waiting for an entire season to go by. But he invests and calls it his portfolio. He approaches that like an investor does the stock market. And that's the difference in you and I picking up the phone at 6 o'clock and saying, oh, I love this game. Give me 300 on, under, whatever.
And I know a lot of people won't play futures only because of what you just said. They can't
it's an investment.
to sit on it. They can't afford to sit on it for 8 or 9 months.
That's right.
or they don't want to sit on it, or they've either closed their account or closed the number with the individual, and they still have the bet out because they're tired of paying the guy. But if you listen to our show, watch our show, you don't have to worry about that. You can sit on it. That's money that you can have. And then if you've got a $500 bet on something that's paying 8-1 or 18-1 or whatever, it's amazing that he had the Florida Panthers.
Florida Panthers to go Stanley Cup Finals, and he's got them to win it all too at a real high number. So
I bet he does.
And they're playing Edmonton, who's, a really good team, has stars, but I think the Panthers have home ice advantage and have a good chance to win that series. So,
let me ask you this. Is it too late to play the Florida Panthers in the series?
No, they'll be.
I'm asking you, should I play them in the series?
I'll have to see what the number is. Edmonton just wrapped up the West last night, knocking the Dallas Stars out. So I'll have to see what the number is to see if it's worth your while. But I will get back to you on that and give you Case's opinion.
And before we move on, real quick, because we're not going to be doing a show until after the season starts. But your thought on, and by the way, the NHL series price right now, the Panthers actually favored. $1.35.
Oh, okay, yeah, because Edmonton's just kind of a middle of the road team overall. They got probably the greatest player on earth in Colin McDavid, but the Panthers are going to have a big chance. They've knocked out the Bruins and the Rangers, two NHL Blue Bloods, in the last two series.
Who do you like in the Mavericks? The Mavericks are catching $1.80. The Celtics almost a 2-1 favorite to win the NBA
Yeah, the Celtics look so stacked, but you got to say the Mavericks are on a mission. And Kyrie Irving's playing with a major chip on his shoulder. He did his time in Boston not that memorable, and in recently the announcement of the Olympic team for the Paris Olympics coming up in July, Kyrie thought he was a lock and did not make the roster. So Kyrie's got a lot to prove right now, besides the contention that the earth is flat.
Gotcha. I love it. All right, my man, I will see you on Saturday morning. And again, make sure if you want to go check out this Chat GGBT show, we did it. You can go find it. We're available on every major industry. TKR, just pull up TKR, or When in Rome with Stuart Rome. Or, of course, on any of our shows. Mission Minded, we have a great show with Leonard Skinner. Of course, we have Need to Know. We have the wonderful show, Keefer and Kurre. All the shows are available on the TKR platform. So check it out. You can go back and listen to all the shows. Thank you, Kip. We'll talk to you next week.
Johnny, this was awesome. Thank you.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.